From one of the most remote corners of the American Southwest comes a story about women.
My daughter could be being raped right now by a 39-year-old man.
My dad sexually molested us, all of us girls.
I just want to cry. I'm afraid to even make more friends because I feel so dang bad at the sorrow the women go through.
They're slaves. They're slaves to the man. This is abuse, and it's a horrible way to live and to grow up.
It's a story about young girls.
I don't think they should be married quite so young.
I didn't want to get married because I'm only 15, and I didn't think I wanted to get married.
I wish I wouldn't have got married when I was 16 because I'm too young to have 3 kids.
These kids are being abused, and the authorities refuse to help them.
It's the story of a secretive religious sect that some have called America's Taliban.
We believe in plural marriage.
Are you a polygamist?
I'm not going to answer that. It's none of your business.
You're sworn law officers. You're accountable to somebody. You got to complain in this
town. But we're not accountable to you. Now get that straight.
They want to control every aspect of a person's life.
Mr. Parker, you can't touch the camera, please. We can't
touch the camera.
I consider we're as much a part of America as anyone else.
It's a fundamentalist society best known for the practice of polygamy. One man, multiple wives, and often dozens of children. A welfare state, according to critics, where almost all of the large families receive public assistance.
It's a food stamp society here. Practically everybody lives on food stamps.
The fundamentalist belief is that a man has more than one family, and that those things are ordained of God.
I think it's all about power, and a few men control power, and they do what they wish.
I know these kids. I know all these kids that are getting married. I was their teacher. They don't need to go through this. They don't need to go through what I went through.
It's a story about a place called Colorado City.
I've lived here all of my life, and I don't plan on going anywhere else.
Born and raised in Colorado City. My dad had 4 wives.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
56.
Everybody's living in fear.
We have lawbreakers running the community.
In the end, bloodshed is going to be running through the streets of Colorado City.
It's also a story about the Underground Railroad that for a lot of women and girls is just about the only way out.
Let's go pick the kids up. They're waiting for us.
Flora Jessup is one of the conductors along Polygamy's Underground Railroad.
I'm headed that way right this minute.
And when he pulls these girls out of school, that's when he's married to them, and he's afraid they're going to go to school and the teachers are going to see the girls pregnant.
Penny Peterson is also a guide helping escapees along their always difficult and sometimes dangerous trek to freedom, a perilous path that Penny herself traveled when she was only a teen.
I was 14 years old. They come and told me I was going to marry a man, 48 years old. I was going to be his 5th wife. I didn't want to do it. I ran as fast and as hard as I can go.
Oh yeah, they've been hunting them. They've raided several houses looking for them.
And on this dark night, under a hazy desert moon, anti-polygamy activist Flora Jessup heading for a rendezvous with 2 teenage girls.
Let's go get my kids.
A couple of 16-year-olds who have run away from their families in Colorado City and now say they don't want to go back.
I don't want to become some 50-year-old man's wife or something like that.
I want to go to school and get an education.
You want to get an education? How much education have you had thus far?
Probably like to 7th grade.
You're a runaway at this point.
I am.
You're a runaway.
Yeah. I don't want what's out there.
You're 16. Do you think they're about to marry you? Would they marry you if you stayed out there?
Yeah.
Soon?
I don't know. I think so.
The two girls, best friends who share the same first name, Fawn Holm and Fawn Broadbent, on the run and hiding out at a safe house on the outskirts of Laverkin, Utah. And it's here in the middle of the night, the two teenagers place their fates in the hands of a woman they've never met, hoping for a future outside of Colorado City and away from the practice of polygamy.
You can't talk to boys. It's like really wicked. You can't like do anything. You can't watch movies or TV or anything. You can't dress like you want to.
We've always been told that people out here were wicked, and I don't believe everyone is wicked.
Shall I tell you a secret? Something that I found out when I left. It's true, we're all wicked. But we're not as wicked as them.
You gonna miss your family?
Yes, especially my mother, my little brothers and sisters. It's my little sister, Amelia.
I don't want to get married out there, and I don't want anything to do with it.
I think that they've got a hard road ahead of them, and I hope that we have enough to give them what they need. My aim is to get these kids to safety ASAP. Top priority.
And for Flora Jessup, that means getting the girls hundreds of miles away from Colorado City as soon as possible. Flora made the same desperate run when she was a teenager, and she knows there will be people out looking for the two fawns, searchers that will undoubtedly include Colorado City's polygamous cops.
I thought the authorities were supposed to protect the kids, and they don't. They're protecting the criminals. They're protecting the abusers.
And if the girls are caught, Flora knows they will most certainly be returned to Colorado City. And once there, promptly placed into polygamous marriages and impregnated, thereby greatly reducing the risk that they'll ever run again.
So they get locked into these polygamous marriages young, really young, and by the time they're wise enough, old enough to make this decision that they don't want to be here, they've got 3 or 4 kids. And in order for them to leave, they've got to run with children or leave their children there, unprotected.
I think it's wrong.
Ruth Stubbs knows all about being placed into a polygamous marriage. At the age of 16, Ruth was given as a so-called plural wife to a 32-year-old polygamous man who already had 2 wives and nearly 20 children. A man by the name of Rodney Holm, a guy who also just happens to be a sworn officer on Colorado City's police force.
Ruth, how old were you when you got married?
16.
16 years old. How old were you when you became pregnant with your first child?
16.
16. And this was an arranged marriage by the religious leaders of that town?
Yes.
Yes. They told you who to marry?
Yes.
A marriage arranged, as almost all are in Colorado City, by the town's powerful religious leader, a position today held by a man named Warren Jeffs, a living prophet of God to his thousands of followers. Jeffs lives in this massive, constantly guarded compound on the Utah-Arizona border, behind an 8-foot wall, with dozens of his wives and perhaps as many as 100 of his children.
I think he's doing wrong, ruining people's lives, trying to get control of everyone.
It absolutely is a cult. They use brainwashing. They use terror to control these kids.
I think women should have the right to say yes or no, or, I think they should have a right to say what's going on with their lives and what's going to go on with their children's lives.
Did you have any say like that in your life?
No.
If you look at the definition of cult, it's destroying families. And Warren Jeffs has pulled apart numerous large families in the last 2 years. Sonny, will you take John in and get him a clean shirt on?
Lenore Holm is an outcast in Colorado City, shunned by polygamous faithful ever since she dared challenge the authority of Prophet Warren Jeffs.
He's destroying families, and he's making him more important than a child's own mother or a child's parents. He's saying, don't listen to your parents, listen to me.
And it all started, Lenore says, when her 16-year-old daughter Nicole was given by Warren Jeffs as a plural wife to an already married polygamous man named Wynn Jessup, a neighbor of Lenore's who already had a wife and 10 children.
Where's the young girl?
I have no idea.
Is she living here with me? Is Mr. Jessup your brother or cousin?
He's my brother, but we're not going to make any further comment.
She's 4 houses down the road, right down the road. We see her driving back and forth with Wynn Jessup because the church has told her to marry him and that's what God wants her to do.
And according to polygamous doctrine, a man must have at least 3 wives if he is to make it into the highest realm of heaven, the celestial kingdom. And for a woman, the one and only way to get to heaven's highest realm, to be the obedient wife of a righteous polygamous man.
It terrifies these girls. They see a guy with 6, 7 wives, and he's a rotten man to them. And these young kids are looking at this guy going, shuddering, going, is this the guy that they're going to make me marry?
Well, with the young girls, they're like a trophy. And then once a man gets them and takes what he wants, then they're shoved under the rug. And the man is looking for another trophy and another trophy.
Lenore objected to the marriage of her underage daughter and at first took her complaints to the headquarters of Colorado City's polygamous cops.
We're not going to have the camera on in here.
What I got from them is that they're trying to communicate to me that I don't have the right to go in there and make a complaint about the fact that my daughter could be being raped right now by a 39-year-old man.
You were just in talking to the police?
Yes, I was just in talking to them, and I said I want a criminal investigation as to whether Wynn Jessup has had sex with my daughter.
Lenore then took her case to county officials in Kingman, Arizona.
The church in Colorado City isolated her from me, and yet she's in Colorado City, and I don't even know where she's living.
But once again, no one seemed very interested or able to help track down her daughter.
It's so hard. When I go to bed at night, I'm in tears because I don't know what he's doing to her. The abuse of power in Colorado City led to young women being sexually abused.
Led, you say past tense. Is it still going on?
Yes, it's happening, and it's going to keep happening, and the population in Colorado City is getting bigger. It isn't getting smaller, and it's happening more and more and more.
And in the end, Lenore's daughter did become a young plural bride to a 39-year-old already married man. And as payback for her disobedience, Lenore says Prophet Warren Jeffs then ordered that Lenore and her large family be evicted from their Colorado City home. A home that Lenore's husband, Milton, had built over many years with his own 2 hands.
You built this home, Milton.
Yeah. Well,
and they're now trying to throw you out of it.
yeah.
And all because of why?
As far as I understand, it's because my wife wouldn't give her legal consent for her 16-year-old daughter to marry a guy with a wife and 10 children.
They're going to throw you out of your home because you wouldn't let your 16-year-old daughter marry some guy.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Just pretty frustrated.
You angry at these people?
All to a degree towards Warren Jeffs.
But a curious little fact about Colorado City, almost all of the land in town is held in a trust called the United Effort Plan, a trust that is completely controlled by Warren Jeffs, meaning, Lenore says, if you get out of line, even if you've built your own home, Warren Jeffs has been known to throw you off the land.
All I want is to not lose everything we have, including my family. And I just wish that these people would leave us alone.
I would love people to see and understand that lifestyle. We've got 1 million cameras in Afghanistan, but nobody, except for you, will go into Colorado City and show this abuse and this lifestyle. People out here are oblivious to it. It's like it's like another country.
Penny Peterson is another well-known anti-polygamy activist. She's also Ruth Stubbs' older sister. At 14, Penny fled an arranged marriage to a 48-year-old polygamist man, And it was to Penny's house in Phoenix that Ruth ran in early 2002 after the pregnant teenager gathered up her 2 small children and slipped out of town.
I felt like a slave.
How do you feel about the possibility of your 2-year-old daughter being taken back and raised in that community?
I don't like it.
Why?
Because I went through a lot and I don't want her to go through the same. I don't want her to have a baby when she's 16. I want her to make somebody out of herself. I want her to be somebody.
How much schooling have you had, Ruth?
I went to the 6th grade.
You went to the 6th grade.
I finished. That was the last grade that I finished.
They're asked to marry at an extremely young age.
For many years, teacher Deloy Bateman has taught the children of Colorado City's large polygamous families at the town's high school.
There are very few girls that actually survive clear to the end of high school.
Most of the girls don't graduate because they're married off.
They're married off before they graduate.
Are they told by the religious leaders whom they're to marry?
Oh, absolutely. Nobody is permitted to make that decision for themselves.
It took courage to leave at 14. They forced that courage on me. It wasn't a choice. I didn't have a choice. You know, I had to run. I had to work real hard, fight against the odds, and I made it. I've got a good family, a good life. A lot of the girls that did leave at my age didn't make it, were, you know, on the streets, prostituted out, stabbed, shot. I got lucky.
You were 16 when you became impregnated, when you got pregnant?
Uh-huh.
By Arizona law, that's a crime. You know that?
I didn't know at the time.
You know now?
I know now. Now that I left, I know.
And after decades of largely ignoring polygamous crimes, law officers in both Utah and Arizona unable to overlook the explosive case of Ruth Stubbs and her polygamous police officer husband as the couple first landed in a Phoenix court fighting for custody of their children.
I feel like right now the way that I teach my kids and the way I teach them to be, I don't know, I feel like that's my life. Right now my kids are my life and I wouldn't know what I'd do if I lost them.
She was physically abused on several occasions.
Attorney William Walker represented Ruth in the custody fight.
Is Ruth's husband, Mr. Holm, is he guilty of some sort of statutory sex crime against your client?
Absolutely. He 3 times in Arizona had sex with her when she was 16. That's a crime in Arizona, sexual conduct with a minor.
Well, I told him all I want is my kids, and he doesn't want to give me my kids, so I feel like whatever happens to him, it's, you know, we wouldn't have to go through all the court and everything if he, you know, if he just wanted to sign over my kids, 2 kids.
Do you think he'll agree to give up your children?
I don't know. Right now it doesn't look like it. He's got attorneys and everything. He's going to fight.
And from the beginning, police officer Rodney Holm, obviously uninterested in talking to us about his custody fight and his relationship with Ruth Stubbs, choosing instead on this day to slip out of a courthouse's back door, trying to avoid our questions.
My name is Mike Watkins. I'm a reporter here in Phoenix.
I know who you are, sir.
Do you?
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you about this proceeding we just witnessed. Apparently you're married to 3 women.
Now, Mr. Holm has gone to court to get access to his children. He's going to tell his story to a judge where decisions can be made. He doesn't want to make his children the subject of some kind of media circus. And with that, we're not going to say anything else today.
My understanding is that you are a police officer.
We're done for today. We're done for today, sir. Thank you.
My understanding is that you are a sworn police officer in both the state of Utah and the state of Arizona, and that you have teenage brides and perhaps impregnated this young woman when it would be a statutory rape.
We don't have anything to say except to the court. He doesn't want to make his kids into some kind of media circus, and he's not going to.
But taking teenage brides, having multiple children with them, I mean, some people would say that already sort of puts his kids at risk. Thank you, gentlemen.
I'm fighting that my kids don't go back into the community.
Why?
Because I don't want them to have to live. I don't want them to have to live that religion. I don't want him to have the pressures that I did, and I don't want him to have to go through what I did.
And given what Ruth had gone through in Colorado City, the question, why hadn't the town's other law officers busted Rodney Holm for having sex with an underage girl? The answer's simple, according to critics. Like Rod Holm, almost all of the town's cops are practicing polygamists who take their marching orders from polygamous prophet Warren Jeffs.
He has absolute control over these people. He really does.
This is a new leader, and if he was to ask for violence, there's undoubtedly that's what he would get.
People are that devoted to this guy?
Absolutely. There's people that would kill for him in an instant.
It's the stories that you guys tell that don't live here.
Sam Roundy is the town's police chief, and this interview with the feisty lawman conducted just before the Rod Holm story broke.
Is there a pattern of girls being married in this town? 15, 16-year-old girls being married to older men. I understand many of the law officers have young wives.
Well, I'm not going to comment on that. That's personal business, and you talk about your personal business.
I'm not married to teenage girls.
Neither am I.
Okay, are any of your officers?
No, they are not.
None of them. None of the law officers in this town are married.
Actually, I'll make no comment on that, okay? It's none of your business.
But when Utah prosecutors heard the story of Rod Holm and his teenage bride Ruth Stubbs, they did something unprecedented. They charged the cop with bigamy and having sex with an underage girl. On this day, Rod Holm showed up at his criminal trial with one of his other two wives.
We love our children very much, and we're very concerned about the pressure of this case coming upon them. I don't believe that any children should have to grow up in fear that their parents could be arrested for the way they believe.
Leave the girls that are underage alone. Don't marry underage girls.
The Holmes' freedom of religion and freedom of expression are under attack in this case. The people of Utah should be concerned about that attack on their freedoms.
But despite his lawyer's claims that Rod Holm was being persecuted because of his religion, a Utah jury took less than 2 hours to find Holm guilty of bigamy and having sex with an underage girl. Rod Holm could have gone to prison for up to 15 years, but in the end, the judge in the case, G. Rand Beecham, gave Holm what many perceive to be a slap on the wrist. 1 year in county jail, Rod Holm is already out and back in Colorado City, living with his two other wives and considered by polygamous faithful to be a martyr and a hero.